Want to welcome you here. This session is being hosted by OFMA, the Oregon Farmers Markets Association, and we support farmers markets across the state with training and advocacy and promotion. And we have lots of online events, including workshops and webinars and peer circles for market staff across the state to have time to talk shop with each other. And that's usually what we use these first Tuesdays of the month for, but we're kind of changing things up a little bit this week because we have a market showcase happening today. It's part of our market showcase series. Each episode features a market talking about a challenge they had and what they did to get help to solve it. The way these work is that the market goes first to tell their story, and then the space is open for Q&A or for any other market to share knowledge gained from your experience on today's topic. And we hope this can be a space to talk candidly with peers about how to innovate our markets. A couple more things about how our sessions work and sharing discussion time with each other, because we hope you'll be comfortable here in this online world. My name is Amanda Cross. I'm with OFMA and I'm here as host today. Also here from OFMA is Kendra Graves, who's our backup in case if anything happens with the technology, and is also who you'll be talking with via the chat window. Feel free to be off camera if that helps you attend and participate. And definitely, this is a participatory space. We want you to ask questions and share what you know. You can talk out loud or put comments and affirmations in the chat, but also please share the time with others so we can hear from a variety of markets. In fact, if you tend to find yourself in the place of talking for a while, maybe try asking another person to share or open up the space to others instead. Yeah, so today we have Lisa Hall here. She's the market manager for the Montavilla Farmers Market in Portland. And her market recently revamped their vendor orientation process this year with a set of videos. And we're going to hear all about how that went and how she created those. Lisa, would you please introduce yourself and please share what your market created?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen. Great. So yeah, today I am going to be talking a bit about supporting beginning vendors at farmers markets. Great. So a little bit about myself. My name is Lisa Hall. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the executive director at Montavilla Farmers Market. I was originally hired as the market manager in 2020 and am currently in my second season as the executive director. Previously, I worked at Portland Farmers Markets for 4 seasons and managed 3 different markets for those 4 years. Montavilla Farmers Market is a year-round farmers market in Southeast Portland. We host about 65 vendors every Sunday in the summer and 50 vendors in the winter. We are along a business district and are in a very large, ugly gravel parking lot that gets transformed every week into a vibrant community gathering place. So when thinking about supporting beginning vendors at farmers markets, the first thing that comes to mind is exactly how much of our job as market staff it is to provide that support. We tend to have very limited capacity with all of our different roles that are expected from us. And there's also so much we can do. For instance, we're not going to convince a vendor to change their business model or their values. So ideally, for us, it's important to find evergreen resources that we can share with beginning vendors and prospective vendors every year that make it so we're not answering the same exact questions every single application season. Some things that markets can do for our beginning vendors is first and foremost to really value your own expertise. Even if you are a beginning market manager, you have an amazing perspective on the market that vendors don't see. You are continually talking to customers and seeing vendor successes and struggles and what displays work and whatnot. So just really value your own expertise, and any advice that you're giving to vendors is usually good advice. At our market, we do a vendor orientation, which I think is honestly pretty important to set up expectations with your vendors, especially beginning folks. In 2020, during COVID lockdown, we did our orientation on Zoom, which has some positives. For instance, if your vendors are far away, like farmers, they are able to attend more often. You can also record it. So then if you have vendors that join mid-season, you can send them that recording and they can get caught up with your orientation and rules. One thing that was a little bit of a negative is it doesn't condone as much conversation and question asking as in person. So this last year, we started doing our orientation in person again at site. And this was just a great way to connect with our vendors. We had quite a few folks who were starting markets for the very first time. And we noticed that it was a lot more of a conversation amongst folks. So within the orientation, there's many things that you should be talking about. We honestly talk a lot about display and how to set up your booth so it's very inviting for your customers. I often talk a lot about the study that was done with Green New York farmers markets a while ago. They looked at customer behavior, and they found that customers look at a vendor booth for 3 seconds before they decide whether they're going to engage and actually buy a product. And I think that this is a really powerful story to tell our beginning vendors. Like you literally have 3 seconds to convince someone to buy what you're trying to sell. So your display needs to be very obvious and beautiful and dynamic and eye-catching for that customer to actually come and engage with your booth. We also talk a lot about rules, of course, and etiquette in the market. But in the orientation, it's a great time to emphasize the rules that you will absolutely enforce. We know that markets have a lot of rules that sometimes you have to pick your battles during market day, but there are a couple that will absolutely are very important to you for safety reasons or whatnot. For instance, at the orientation, I'll tell the vendors, if you take down your tent before 2 p.m., I will come and yell at you. Or if you bring in your car before 2:15, I'll run over and tell you to leave. Just setting up those expectations is important for new folks who are maybe feeling nervous for the first market. And then we talk about some specifics to our market that makes us a little more unique compared to some others in Portland. For instance, we have very loyal customers, which is great for the vendors that they're loyal to, but sometimes beginning vendors, it takes them several weeks for customers to notice them and actually want to come and try their products. So just reiterating that it can take a while to build your customer base is important. And this meeting is really great for when you actually have to talk to your vendors about rules or display. You're just following up on the expectations that you've already set, which creates more of a conversation than a kind of awkward initial, hey, this was a rule that you should have read about, but I know you didn't type thing. So if you see that vendor taking down their tent, and it's like, remember when I said I would yell at you? This is me yelling and put it back up type thing. I find it especially helpful for when talking to people about displays. I'll ask the vendor, hey, can I give you some advice? Usually they say yes. And I can just say, hey, remember we talked about the 3-second rule? When I first walk by your booth, it's not screaming bakery to me. What are some ways that we can really show customers what you're trying to sell here and make it dynamic and beautiful and inviting. Beyond orientation and following up with vendors, markets can obviously do advertising for your vendors. We, in this picture here, we always do a post saying any new vendors that are coming to the market. It's definitely gets a lot of likes and exciting for folks. We also try to do vendor highlights. So just individually talking about vendors and their products can help just get that in the mind of customers. So next time they see it, it's like, oh, I saw a picture of them, or I know a little bit of their background. If this sounds just terribly overwhelming and like I don't have time for that, one trick that we do is in our application, we ask our vendors to write a 1 to 2 sentence little bio, and we say like for social media or marketing purposes. And then you can grab a picture from their Instagram, throw that bio on your own, and then there's your vendor highlight. I will say you have to edit those bios quite a bit. There are surprisingly amount of grammar and spelling errors, but it takes a lot less time than actually going to their website and trying to create it yourself. Another thing markets can do is just know the value of word of mouth. This is how most customers find out about farmers markets. If you didn't already know that, that's our biggest marketing tool. And so as the manager or market staff, you are in the market the whole time, talking to customers, other vendors, and staff. And so just keep in mind those beginning vendors and kind of talk them up a little bit to folks that you are having a conversation with. We do a product jury before our vendors come. So any non-farm product we taste, which is a great way for us to just get to know the product and the business a little bit more. So if someone's asking me like, I'm thinking about a sweet treat, I can say like, oh, you should go try this new bakery. They have cupcakes, all their recipes are inspired from their grandma. They're really great, you should go try them out. And that can be really helpful for new folks. And then honestly, one of the most important things that I think markets can do for vendors is just building a relationship with them. This helps the vendor feel more comfortable in the market. If they want to ask you for advice, if there is some rules, expectations that needs to be talked about, it's a way for folks just to feel more comfortable and for that to be more of a nice community building conversation versus a little more polarizing. And this also, your individual relationships with vendors encourages vendors to have relationships with each other, which is incredibly important. And brings me to my next topic of what vendors can learn from other vendors. So the point of this entire presentation is our beginning vendor video series. This was a project through the Farmers Market Learning Network program that OFMA had. So we were able to have a little bit of money to work on a project that for us we chose to help our beginning vendors. This came along by us emailing our existing vendors, what are some things that you wish that you knew before starting at a farmer's market? We were able to compile a list and brainstorm some new things, and then thought about different experts and vendors that would have a lot of good advice for these topics. These topics are mostly all things that market staff can't actually answer or give advice on. At least for our market specifically, none of us have been a vendor. We've never owned a small business. So there's a lot of advice that I can't actually give our new vendors. So I asked the experts if they would make a 10 to 15 minute video. We were able to pay them $100 per video from the funds from OFMA. And we have 11 videos right now. One is still in the works. that are currently on YouTube. So this, you can access it in two different ways. You can either go to YouTube and find the Montavilla Farmers Market YouTube page. If you go down here are the videos. And if you go to playlist, it's our beginning farmers market vendor advice. Oops. So on here, you'll see our different videos. So we have ones about becoming farmers market ready, which Jess Lant, who's actually in the call right now, did. Using social media as a farmers market vendor, growing your business, managing expectations and burnout for farmers market vendors, which honestly, I suggest all farmers market staff watch this video. It's pretty great. I'll see if you can reel me up. Commercial kitchen tips, setting produce pricing. This is mostly for produce farmers. Talking about temporary restaurant licenses, hiring employees, choosing your packaging, getting noticed by customers. This is also kind of geared a little bit more towards farmers, but is all about displays. And then some general tips on starting a new business to vend at the farmers market. So yeah, you can find these on YouTube, or you can go to Montavilla Farmers Market website. Under our vendor application, you can scroll down to the vendor resources, the video series. On this page, we also have some of our other evergreen resources for beginning vendors. Honestly, though, looking at this page, it's a little overwhelming and makes me not want to read anything. So I don't necessarily suggest having it set up like this, but just having some things for vendors who are curious and want to learn more about how to join your market, I think is important to have on the website. Oops. Some setbacks that we had with this project. The biggest one is that a lot of people said no to recording the video, which I was a little surprised about, but everyone's really busy and there's different comfort levels. And then also videos were not returned on like the specific timeline that we were hoping for, hence the one that's still in the works. But the series for us is mostly supposed to be there to, sorry, oh gosh. I don't know what's happening there. And then that's gonna stay there, sorry. So yeah, this video series is for our vendors who want to join the market or are brand new, and it's just a resource that we want to have available for folks. I don't think we're going to make them required, or our vendor orientation is required, but just have this available for folks who are feeling maybe some nervousness if they're asking us questions about these specific topics. We have this resource that we can point to. So yeah, please feel free to use these videos. They're made and available for everyone. They maybe have a little bit of specificity for Oregon and just a tiny bit for Multnomah County, but in general, they should be pretty helpful for all farmers market vendors and beginning businesses looking to vend at markets in general. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on for what vendors can learn from other vendors is just cultivating a place of collaboration as market staff, I think is incredibly important. For instance, if you are bringing in a new product or a new vendor, or even a product that's similar to something you already have, just shaping that in a way of celebration and kind of making sure your vendors know that it's a good thing. It's going to bring more people to your market, and more people will have in their mind that this is a great place to go and buy cheese or mushrooms or whatnot. It's great to encourage your vendors to collaborate with each other. For instance, this picture down here is one of our hot food vendors collaborating with a broth vendor to make a special broth that is a combination of their two flavors that they they work hard with, or even encouraging farmers to be talking with each other. At our market, I've seen some of our beginning farmers talking with some of our more long-time farmers about just crop advice and what's good to sell. And if everyone's selling a ton of tomatoes and one person can pivot to sell more peppers, then it can be a win for everyone. And then your market has more variety. So just celebrating that, I think, is incredibly important for beginning vendors and existing. Thank you. That is my TED Talk. And now I'd love to hear how you all support your beginning vendors.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. That was great. And this is such a wonderful resource to share out to all the markets. And we're a small group here, so please feel free to just come off mute and ask a question. There is one question in the chat already. Talking more about how did you prioritize the topics you selected for videos?
Yeah, so this mostly came from the email that we asked other vendors, like just, hey, what are some things that you wish that you knew? We didn't get a ton of responses because, you know, we're emailing our vendors. So we were pretty much able to use all of those, and then me and some of our other staff brainstorm some other topics that we see vendors kind of struggling with sometimes.
Well, I just wanted to say this looks like a great assemblage of videos, and in a way it's you know, we all wish that we had that knowledge when we started a long time ago, but it's something you develop over time, and you just have to accept that it takes time to get to that point. And a lot of us are, you know, not there. I have a checklist. That's all I have.
Yeah, honestly, Elsie's video, Elsie is with Creole Me Up, and they've been doing markets for, I think, like 6 years now. They talk a lot about how much they struggled at the beginning and how it wasn't seeming like they were working out, and they kept going and going, and now they're quite successful.
This is who?
Elsie with Creole Me Up. They do like Haitian condiments. It's the managing expectations and burnout video is really helpful, and you'll fall in love with Elsie because it's a great video.
Well, I'm already in love with anyone who would agree to make that video and follow through.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Sorry, I came in a little bit late.
Lena, do you want to say more about your question, like about vendor setup, or how vendors are having trouble with vendor setup? And then maybe the others can talk about how they help get vendors to follow those guidelines.
Yeah, so
there's a video that goes with it, if Lisa wants to share.
Yeah. For our setup, we ask all our vendors to like take everything out of their cars because we have such a small location. Like our driveways, like you can drive in and go and park and take everything out of your car. But a lot of times we ask vendors to like just leave after you take everything out. And then like instead of setting up like while you're taking stuff out of your car, because it kind of creates a traffic jam. And we have a lot of vendors who like don't really like to listen to that rule. So they set up like as they're taking stuff out of their car. And so I was just kind of asking if any other markets had that problem, or like how they take care of it.
Hey, Lena, this is Jess at Oregon City. We battle that terribly because we also have a more condensed lot now that we've moved. And one thing that I ended up like going through some coaching because I was having so much difficulty reeling this issue in. And so we did put it very specifically in our handbook, included the rules at our vendor orientation. And generally, especially when a new vendor shows up, I'll go up, introduce myself and whatnot, and then share with them the rules of, the market to like reiterate, please unload, then move your vehicle immediately, and all of that. Don't come in until we move the barricades at the end of day in a polite, engaging manner. But I think beyond that point is where I continue to struggle as well, and then start needing to get maybe a little more Lisa-ish, where she was saying, so all to say is if it's written in your handbook, you have kind of what Lisa was saying, that backup, you can set your expectations and then have the backup to prove it. So you're not like sharing some new rule. It's there. You agreed to follow the rules when you signed the application to attend. But that is not to say it is, I'm totally with you as it being a weekly struggle. So my empathy, I feel empathy for you as well.
I feel like consistency has worked really well for keeping rules. We have dealt with that in the past, but if you are always going up to them and saying, hey, remember this rule, every time it happens, then they're gonna learn. They're gonna have to learn. Because if you let it slide one time, then another vendor will see it slide and then it'll start snowballing and things like that. So I've found that consistency with keeping rules and telling any vendor who breaks the rule that they did break the rule and how to fix that makes it so people will follow it in the future. But it is a struggle.
I don't know. That one is a hard one to say at what moment has someone broken the rule? Because they, if no one is getting anything out of the vehicle, then I think you could walk up to them and they're vehicle's just sitting there and no one in their grouping is pulling anything off the vehicle. But what I see is a lot of in-betweenish sort of things, like one person is pulling things off the vehicle and another person who is able-bodied and could be pulling stuff off the vehicle has started futzing with tablecloths and things like that. And so that's a little grayer. And you don't always know who is able-bodied and who isn't. It could be the person futzing with a tablecloth. That's literally all they're physically capable of that day. So I wish I could say that we were 100% consistent. Also, the larger your market is, you can't, if you have 5 people screwing up at one time, you have to pick one to start on. And that person is going to say, but look at these other 4 people. And I always say, I know, and I'll get to them as soon as we're through here. Okay.
Rose, do you see your hand up?
Thanks. I'm not managing a market right now, but I have in the past, and this was something that we struggled with as well. I think a mindset that really helped me work specifically with the St. John's Farmers Market was developing a culture more around the handbook being a community agreement rather than a list of rules. And I think that was so impactful because in the handbook, we also created like a way to hold the manager accountable for like what you were saying, Rebecca, about how like some vendors feel like there's not being held accountable toward other vendors and there's like not a consistency across the board. So that was a mechanism for the vendors to know that they could hold me accountable for that. And I also put stuff about how I would hold them accountable and really creating a culture around accountability as a mechanism toward building community. It's not a mechanism toward shame or anything like that. It's about how can we be in like collaborative relationship with each other. And I noticed that over time really did help shift people's mindset from thinking of me as like this antagonist more to like, hey, we're trying to be in collaboration for each other. We're not in opposition, we're in collaboration.
Yeah, and to build off that, I was gonna say having relationships with your vendors make it so much easier to kind of enforce rules too. And for instance, if it's a vendor who's doing it every single time, then it can, instead of just being like, hey, again, it can be like, what's going on here? Like, why is this a thing? You know that you're blocking traffic and it sucks. Like it sucks to get your traffic blocked, but like how can we work together to make this not as much of a thing? Too can be helpful then as well.
I have a new vendor topic. I think I still struggle to draw the line, how much advice that isn't strictly like you must do this because the rules or the state or the feds or somebody says you have to do this. And I really suggest that you think about this. Usually this is over email, and so you don't have the benefit of their vocal tone or anything to gauge. Sometimes when I offer advice about, in this case, it was that somebody had adopted a vendor name, but they hadn't registered it anywhere yet. And it was a very common name, so that when someone does a search on Facebook or Instagram, there's going to be a zillion businesses and it's not going to be clear which one is them. And that didn't go over well. And then they said, well, we'll do it right away. We'll get an LLC right away if it's a requirement. And I said, wait a minute, there's such thing as a business license in Oregon. You can get an assumed business name or an LLC. That's all up to you. What I told you was just advice. Make your own decision on your own time scale. But I got off to a bad start with this vendor because I should add that they put LLC in their Facebook picture without having one. So that struck me as problematic, but I didn't even mention that because I thought that might be antagonistic. So what are people's takes on unsolicited advice like that?
I think it definitely depends on, my relationship with the vendor. A lot of times, especially, I don't give as much advice when it comes to like LLC business things, but like it comes up a lot with temporary restaurant license or display, or if someone's like not doing as well. And like I always ask like, hey, can I give you some advice? And then my approach is to talk to them as not that I'm the manager, but more of like as a customer. And it's like, oh, like as a customer, when I walk up, I have no idea what you are selling type thing. What can we add type thing? Or maybe from that it's like, oh, like as a customer searching for your name on Facebook, I can't find it. Like, have you thought about putting a dash Corvallis or something unique to that? Because in it, for me, it's a little more like I'm trying to help as a customer, not like, oh, hey, I'm the rule maker and you're doing something wrong type thing. That's just my approach.
Yeah, and specifically, if anyone has any ideas about, sorry, I just got a vendor call. I'm gonna.
Anyone want to share more about their vendor orientation process and what they're doing?
Or do folks talk to their vendors, especially beginning vendors, about the importance of creating their customer base in one place? I'll see a lot of beginning vendors try a market and it's like, I don't do well at here, I'm going to go to a different market next year. And it's like, that's not how it works. It's not that market's going to get you so many more customers unless you have a specific connection to the community or whatnot. But I always find that that's like a really that can be a tricky topic to talk about. Maybe more of a thing in Portland than other places in the state.
Yeah, I think one thing that we get a lot of is customers, vendors when they're first applying, they're like, what are your busiest market days? And I'm like, I'll tell you, we have our customer counts, but our busiest days are not going to be your best sales days necessarily, depending on your product. So we try to like help set expectations and then, explain that like when there's an event in the park that's adjacent to our market, it might help your sales. It might not help your sales. Actually, maybe start with a winter market with less competition, and you'll probably see the same amount of sales or more than you would see at a summer market with 175 vendors.
Mhm.
So yeah, we like to set some expectations and also, you know, encourage folks like to really understand just setting up isn't enough. We can't do everything for you. Like we're bringing customers to the market. You have to get them to your booth. That makes sense.
Aileen, I see your hand up.
Yeah, so my last question is just kind of asking how we kind of struggle with also we move vendors around kind of each week just to kind of try new layouts for our market. So I was just kind of asking like how like each market kind of sets up theirs, like if they have like sections for like the food and the crafts and all that sort of stuff.
So at our market, we don't have sections really. It's our market is you would do like one big lap. And everyone's pretty spread out. We actually kind of intentionally will spread out our different like vendor products. So if you come to one corner of the market, theoretically you could get a baked good and your produce and some groceries and meat or whatnot, and same with another corner. We honestly also really try to not move our vendors. I remember the first market I ever managed trying to move a vendor, and someone got really mad at me, and that was a hard lesson to learn for my first market. But that's something that we've heard from vendors is when they do move them, their sales go down because our market is like mostly the same folks every week, that like they get used to like, okay, I'm gonna go there and purchase from my one vendor that I know that I love. I've been at a market where literally we moved one person over 10 feet, and it was like this because there's space. It wasn't even another vendor, and I had several people be like, hey, where'd the tamale people go? And it's like they're literally right there, just a little over. Because customers are kind of not super observant. But if that is something that your vendors are loving, like moving around, that's something you can be talking with, or if you do have more of a like touristy market and it is new people every week, that might be something that might be beneficial. But our market specifically, we try not to move folks like even each year. Like they're in the same spot, and yeah, we have them spread out.
Yeah, vendors don't like to be, my experience anyway, vendors don't like to be moved. And I was a vendor for a few years before taking over the market in 2009. So I kind of have a little bit of a background in on a vendor perspective. And some vendors are more, you know, definitely, no, don't move me. Some like, you know, are okay with being moved. They're flexible, and that's great. And I'm always talking with them and finding out who's flexible, who's not. We also have quite a few artisans that are intermittent, and they understand right from the get-go. You explain to them, I'm going to shuffle you around because you're intermittent. I can't keep you in the same spot when you're here every other week and you take weeks off. So most of them understand that. But our placement, from the beginning, I kind of had this concept of anchor vendors, and our larger produce vendors. We have 4 or 5 large farm vendors, our farmers, and I put those in the corners, and that actually helps get the foot traffic to all the corners of the market. It draws customers to kind of the so no small vendors are placed in a corner tucked away somewhere. So and I give them a little extra space for them to spread out and be noticed and have good visibility in the corners. And that it's helped. I think and keeping them in the same spot each and every week. Our farmers pretty much are seasoned vendors. They might take a week here or there off, but it's easy to keep them in the same place. Our artisans, for the most part, can get shuffled if they're there consistently. I try not to shuffle them around, but yeah, that can be drama for definitely for some vendors, whether it's you know, a big, whether you think it is or not, the perception is that it's bad for business, and so they're pretty adamant about being in the same spot.
I
I
think,
tried,
oh, sorry.
okay, I try to even put those every other week vendors in the same spot, but when those vendors then try to change their schedule, then I may not be able to put them in the same spot because I've already planted someone else there. And we've reached the point now, I guess our recovery from pandemic is complete enough that people who are playing late, I'm telling them right off, no matter, you know, if we take them, they're going to be a farmer anyway. But even if they're a farmer, I'm telling them they're going to not have a consistent space necessarily because, you know, I've already maxed out on all the spaces that are solid for the whole year. And now I'm getting the person that got mad for mentioning some things about business. They're microgreens growers, so those can pop up at any time of the year. And a few other things. But if somebody's not growing a product at this point, I don't have any room for them at all. But I think it's good to set the expectation, you know, like you do, Charlie, with your artisans, set the expectation. They're never going to be more cooperative than the moment that they're waiting for you to say yes. After that, it might be all downhill depending on how well you build the relationship. But at that point, that's when you say, hey, I don't have a consistent spot for you. I'm going to do everything I can in my power to get you as much consistency as I possibly can. But there's even the possibility I'll have to move you to my other city. I will try to just keep you as close as possible to where you are, and give you plenty of warning, and also make sure that the new spot is advantageous for you if I can. And, you know, so far that's working, but some of those people are not going to make it, I'm afraid. Not because of them being moved around necessarily, but because they started so late. They didn't plan, they didn't apply.
When we had to move a vendor, we also sometimes put up signs in that spot to say where the vendor is. And I also made sure that we had volunteers in our info booth, so I made sure they had a note that people may be asking them about this, so that somebody wouldn't come to the info booth and say, where is such and such vendor? And the volunteer who's only there for a day goes, oh.
We've just implemented this really cool market map that's quite interactive for folks at the info booth if they're looking for a vendor. And we have sections of out this week, late cancel, done for season at the bottom. And then on the front, it's got all the space locations and the market map layout, and then all of the vendors, you know, listed. And so if somebody does have to move, that can kind of give another visual. I do one thing, if there is a vendor that has a great display, we've done the media and all of the stuff, they've got a great product, but the foot traffic just isn't there. One thing sometimes I'll offer is, would you like to try a new location and see if that might increase your foot traffic or visibility? And often folks will be like, yeah, let's try it. I'm thinking of my kombucha vendor, and we moved her an aisle over in just a location that just had a better, you know, foot traffic to it. And then her sales increased. So that was a positive. So sometimes, you know, the location, you know, does play effect with, even though they've got all the other things all dialed in. So that's just one, and I can't do that all the time, but sometimes if I have the flexibility, something to offer. Rebecca, no, my operations coordinator is this very gifted artist, and she built almost like a big sidewalk sign. It's like this huge easel, and then she painted it. I'll have to send a photo. And then she did all the market map on it. So no, I'll just say no, it's not electronic. We manually switch out the Velcro labels each week to reflect that week's attendance. It's a lot of fun. It's really cute.
I have mine here. I think we have the same thing. I can show people
Yeah, show and tell. I love it.
this, and then you can just move things around.
Oh, that's nice, Liz. I like that.
Sounds nice because it was an artist rendering. Mine was just Canva, but it works really well,
Yeah,
especially for a small
for
market.
sure. Yay. I love that. It really does help. And then sometimes I'll kind of stand nearby when I see folks like looking for wellness, then that invites conversation. Oh, who are you looking for? Oh, so and so. They're not here, but could I, we do have, you can try to offer an alternative or at least give them information of when the vendor will be, returning or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. That's customers really like the visual, and they like figuring it out. So looking at those kinds of things, and then they're looking at it and they're looking at other vendors and go, oh, what is that? I didn't notice that vendor was there, and they'll find other things. It's in its second or third iteration on a 3-foot by 4-foot whiteboard, and it's magnetic with magnets for the vendor names, and we're still working on it, but it's a similar concept. I think it's it's kind of fun. You are here, like at the grocery store, there's a little thing where you are, so, and that's helpful to say, okay, now I kind of get the orientation of the map, and then you are here, and then you kind of get an idea where the vendor you're looking for is at.
I also want to share like another thing you can do for accessibility for SNAP people who use SNAP benefits. You can put what if they're one that accepts either or both.
If y'all put like a little something about what they sell, we had a fish vendor out called Trayfin, and everyone that asked was like, where are the seafood people? Like, or
Same.
do they just know the vendor names enough, or
Yeah,
still
well,
with it?
I agree, Lisa, because we have them too, and it's like dayboat tuna and then tray fin. It's like and people ask always the seafood vendor, never tray fin. So I wish, if ideally it'd be nice to have room to put like a little bot or a little vendor identification as to what it is they sell underneath. And that if we had room, that would be really, I think, really prudent.
Also so Lisa's market was part of a group of farmers markets that were sharing their vendor sales data every week with OFMA so that we could do some research on that. And some of the original year's data was saying that vendors who come consistently, and so tying back to that question about vendors like hopping around and trying different markets and not having a super consistent schedule, one thing we saw was that vendors who come consistently make more money overall, and not just because they're there more days and that so they have a higher total, but that like their rate of increasing, especially as new vendors, their rate of increasing their sales grows faster than the people who hop around. At least that's what the data from a couple of years ago was saying. We have a new researcher, and I'm looking forward to seeing if the data in the most past recent years, which are more out of the COVID time, say the same thing. And since I've heard you guys talk about that and wanting to convince vendors of that, I think if we see the data say that, making some kind of infographic about that you could then share with your vendors to say, see, look at this, look at what we're seeing from markets around the state about consistency and having a good schedule.
It's tricky. I agree, Amanda, because some of ours are like every other week attendance, and it gets really old trying to remind customers of what weeks they're here. And I do feel on some of those items it does them a disservice. But and folks that would sell more like hard goods, like we have some, I don't know, that make bowls or whatever after foraging for wood or whatever. Well, that's not something really that they'd sell a lot of every week, and so things like that tend to be better with I don't know, but agreed, the consistency really does make a difference for the food vendors.
Man, but then we have a beginning, like brand new to market vendor who's every other week and just absolutely killing it. And I'm a little surprised, but and I almost, I'm like, should I try to do an interview with them or like be like, what are you doing? But they're selling out every week. And I mean, their social media is really great. Maybe they're just bringing in a new audience and their product is fairly unique. It's also really expensive.
Is that the
So
salsa? Is that the salsa company? Oh my
yeah,
gosh. I was at your
doing
market
great.
on Saturday or on Sunday, and I went and purchased it, and I thought I misunderstood when she told me how much it was.
And it's really good salsa, but
It's
they're doing great.
delicious. It's delicious,
So
but
yeah.
yeah, okay.
But
It
yeah,
is
so it's
wonderful
like
salsa.
I don't know what they're doing differently compared to like another beginning vendor we have that's there every week, has a great display, and um yeah, sometimes it's just hard to know what the people want to.
And by consistent, like every other week is fine. That data was saying like
Yeah,
every other
that's fair.
week is fine, but they have to, it's the like, we're here 2 weeks, then we're gone 3, then we're here a week. And like, not being able to even tell people when that vendor will be back is part of the problem.
And it's really hard for scheduling.
Yes.
That's usually part of my spiel with new vendors, and trying to relate to them that we're a farmer's market, but I kind of like the term and the way to describe our market is a small business startup. It's a place for entrepreneurs to put their product out in front of the public and get feedback on it and just start your business. And basically our goal is to get, if you're an artisan with an idea or just an entrepreneur with a product idea, to use the market to develop your idea in your product and to eventually in a year or two to have so much business outside the market that you can't come to market anymore. That's those are success stories to me, and trying to relate all those issues. And if you get, I think, you get the vendor to buy into that and to take what they're doing a little more seriously, it's a better relationship. It's more professional. They do follow rules. They pay attention to things, and they're just, and that's just nurturing that side of what they're doing and give them compliments and when they're doing good stuff and also with the criticism, and then they take criticism a little better when you're doing both sides of it. Yeah.
How are you relaying that to your vendors? Is that through orientation or just casual conversations or your
Definitely
mission?
do orientation. I stress that. And our orientation, we do one big spring sign up meeting orientation at the end of March or the beginning of April. And that's our big orientation day. And that's stressed at the beginning. And it's mainly because we're kind of off the grid out here. We are a medium-sized market. And these last few years are our first years really where we're full. I haven't had to deal with that in the past over 15 years. It's really been, we haven't had a lot of options with our, we need vendors. We like to have, I hate having empty spots. So now it's, I've got more vendors than spots, which is great. We can kind of weed out some of the vendors who are more yard sale, flea market kind of vendor artisans and accept the better artisans or entrepreneurs who take it seriously. And we have a write-up on what to do, basically a small business packet kind of from our small business development folks, help with a lot of that, the verbiage and to get them to understand, hey, I am a small business. I can make money, and develop this idea into something that can actually be pretty cool. So yeah, and that relationship with the market manager, I think, and like I said, it's a learning process, but it's a very cool thing. It's when you're helping folks and people are successful, it's always a great feeling.
That's a lovely way to close things out, to say at the end. Thank you so much, Charlie. This has been really great having you all here today and seeing all the back and forth. And thank you, Lisa, for sharing your videos. Can't wait for more market managers to know about those and start using them with their vendors. And yeah, thanks everybody for your participation and sharing today.
Thanks, everybody. Sure appreciate seeing y'all.
You.
Have a good week.